Do you even know what this rocket is worth? What if the most expensive rocket launch in America was saved by someone no one would ever trust? Minutes before a $4 billion mission was about to fail, experts ran out of answers. Alarms were screaming. Time was almost gone. And then, an impossible voice changed everything. How did a 6-year-old girl see what world-class engineers missed? What risk did they take when nothing else worked? Watch till the end to discover how one decision rewrote everything. Hello friends, welcome to our story. Before we begin, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. And tell me one thing, where are you watching this video right now, and what time is it in your city? We love to know that. A cold Atlantic breeze rolled through a forgotten stretch of land near the coast of Cape Sentinel, Florida, carrying moisture into a cluster of tin roof shacks squeezed between a concrete flood barrier and the sea. Water dripped steadily from bent metal sheets. Power lines sagged dangerously low. In the center of it all lay a patch of cracked dirt that passed for a playground, marketplace, and meeting ground all at once. At the edge of that ground, half hidden behind weeds and broken crates, sat an abandoned drainage tunnel. That tunnel was home. Inside it lived a 6-year-old girl named Lily. She was small for her age, with tangled dark hair usually tied back with a piece of string. Her clothes were oversized hand-me-downs, stained with oil, dust, and salt. Her shoes never matched, but her eyes, sharp, curious, constantly observing, didn't belong to a child who had given up on the world. Lily woke up every morning before the sun. Not because someone told her to, because survival had taught her to. Her mother had died 2 years earlier from an untreated infection. There was no father anyone could point to, no paperwork, no address, just Lily, the tunnel, and a canvas sack that followed her everywhere. By the time the first light touched the horizon, Lily was already walking. She moved through alleyways and service roads, digging through discarded electronics, broken appliances, burned-out circuit boards. To most people, it was junk, trash, worthless debris. To Lily, it was a library. She never just collected things. She studied them. She cracked open old radios to see where sound came from. She traced copper lines on damaged boards with her fingers. She memorized which parts failed first, which wires overheated, which batteries swelled before dying. She didn't know the words voltage or feedback loop, but she understood behavior. Behind the flood barrier, taller than any building Lily had ever entered, stood something that fascinated her more than anything else in the world. The largest launch complex in the eastern United States. From her side of the wall, she could see only pieces of it. The tops of towers, the slow movement of massive transport vehicles, men and women in white coats moving with purpose. And sometimes rockets. She didn't know their names, but she knew their sound. When the ground trembled and the sky roared, Lily would press her palms to the concrete barrier and smile. Something enormous was leaving the earth. Something powerful. Something precise. That morning felt different. Helicopters circled overhead before sunrise. Security vehicles moved nonstop along the perimeter roads. Even in the settlement, people whispered, "Big launch today. Government mission. Billions on the line." Lily didn't understand money, but she understood tension. As she filled her sack with scrap near the rear service zone, an area where outdated equipment was often dumped, she noticed a large pile she hadn't seen before. Burned casings, melted connectors, half-crushed control modules. Her heart raced. She knelt and began sorting. Then she saw it. A charred control unit, cracked open along one edge. The internal circuitry was exposed, blackened but intact enough to read. Lily wiped away the soot and sat cross-legged on the ground. Her fingers moved instinctively. She followed the lines, the pathways, the junctions where decisions were made. Something felt wrong. A low vibration passed through the ground. Then another. Lily froze. "That's too early," she whispered. She didn't know countdown schedules, but she knew patterns. This vibration didn't belong here yet. She tilted her head toward the barrier. From beyond it came muffled shouts. Fast footsteps. Faint alarm, short, repeating, urgent. Her eyes snapped back to the control unit. There One pathway fed into another, but the direction felt wrong. Like a river forced uphill. Like two hands pulling the same rope in opposite directions. If power goes this way, she murmured, the system would panic. She looked up. Beyond the wall, a rocket stood tall and silent against the sky, waiting. Lily didn't know that the mission carried national importance. She didn't know about international partners or orbital deadlines. She didn't know that millions of people would be watching in a few hours. But she knew this. Something was broken. And if it wasn't fixed soon, something beautiful was about to fail. She stood, clutching the control unit tightly to her chest. At the rear security gate, a guard noticed her approaching and frowned. "Hey, you can't be here." Before Lily could respond, a technician burst through the gate, holding another damaged module, panic written all over his face. "It's useless," he shouted. "The backup's failing too." Lily's grip tightened. Her heart pounded. This wasn't just scrap anymore. This was a moment. And without knowing it, a 6-year-old girl who slept inside a tunnel had just stepped onto the edge of a decision that would challenge everything a billion-dollar system believed about intelligence, trust, and where brilliance is allowed to exist. The control room of Cape Sentinel Launch Complex no longer felt like a place of science. Felt like the eye of a storm. Wall-sized screens glowed in harsh reds and yellows. Warning messages blinked, vanished, and returned again like stubborn wounds that refused to heal. The sharp, rhythmic beeping of alarms drilled into everyone's skull, turning seconds into pressure. Dr. Michael Harrington, the mission director, had already left his chair. "This is the third abort sequence," he said, his voice tight, controlled only by years of discipline. "Fuel is stable. Thrust is nominal. Guidance checks out. So why does the system keep locking itself?" A young flight engineer swallowed hard. "Sir, all core parameters are green, but the electronic control unit keeps forcing the vehicle into safety mode. The system doesn't recognize the fault." That sentence hit the room harder than any alarm. This was no ordinary rocket. For $1 billion. 7 years of development. Joint payloads. A launch window that would not return for months. Dr. Harrington glanced at the clock mounted above the main display. T92 minutes. "If we don't isolate the fault within 30, he said quietly, "we scrub the launch. Minimum 8 months delay." No one spoke. Everyone in that room understood what an 8-month delay meant. Careers stalled, contracts questioned, reputations damaged. In this business, failure didn't always explode. Sometimes it simply lingered forever. At the back service gate, just outside the complex, Lily stood frozen. The security guard's eyes narrowed as he looked down at her. "You can't be here," he said. "This area's restricted." Lily hugged the damaged control unit tighter. "I come here every day," she said softly. "I pick up broken things." The guard opened his mouth to argue, then stopped. A technician rushed out through the gate, breathing hard, holding a scorched module. "It's dead," the man snapped. "Completely fried. And the spares throwing the same error." The guard scoffed bitterly. "For $1 billion, and it's a piece of trash." Lily's eyes locked onto the module in the technician's hands. Her voice came out before fear could stop it. "Can I see it?" The guard laughed out loud. You think you can fix a rocket?" The technician didn't laugh. He just looked tired, defeated. He stared at Lily for a long second, then shoved the module toward her. "Go ahead. Knock yourself out. It's useless anyway." Lily sat down right there on the concrete. She placed both modules side by side and opened them carefully, as if they were fragile animals. Her fingers moved slowly, deliberately. She wasn't rushing. Rushing caused mistakes. She followed the pathways again and again. "This isn't a failure," she said quietly. The technician frowned. "What?" "It's not broken," Lily repeated. "It's confused." The technician's jaw tightened. "Kid, you don't know what you're talking about." Lily pointed. "This line," she said, tracing a thin copper path with her fingertip. "It's tied into the backup system. When the main system stabilizes, this sends a reverse signal." "So?" So the backup thinks the sensors failed, Lily said. It panics. Then the whole system locks itself. The technician's expression changed. That conflict isn't in the documentation. Lily shrugged. It wouldn't be. It's not a machine mistake. The technician stared at her. Then what is it? Human hurry, Lily said simply. Someone connected two safety layers that shouldn't talk at the same time. The technician didn't argue. He didn't laugh. He turned and ran. Inside the control room, the doors slid open abruptly. A systems engineer hurried to Dr. Harrington's side, breathless. There's a girl outside. She claims the fault is a signal conflict between the primary and backup control paths. Several people scoffed instantly. A girl? Outside? From where? Dr. Harrington raised his hand. Bring her in. The room went quiet. Moments later, Lily stepped inside. The brightness hit her first. Screens everywhere. Numbers moving faster than she could read. English words stacked on top of each other. Guidance, telemetry, fault status. And eyes. So many eyes. Her dirty clothes, bare feet, and dust-streaked face stood in painful contrast to the pristine room. She felt small, out of place. This is her? Someone muttered. Dr. Harrington studied Lily carefully. You said the control unit is fighting itself, he said. Why? Lily didn't look at him. She looked at the screen where launch abort flashed again. When two hands pull the same wheel in opposite directions, she said softly, the wheel doesn't turn. It breaks. A few engineers exchanged glances. Dr. Harrington leaned forward. Can you show us? They brought up a digital board. Lily climbed onto a stool and drew simple shapes. Boxes. Arrows. One arrow forward. One backward. This is the primary controller, she explained. This is the backup. Both are correct. But the moment thrust stabilizes, the backup misreads the signal and shuts everything down. A senior engineer stepped closer. That reversal lasts only 20 milliseconds. Lily nodded. For a rocket, she said. That's forever. Dr. Harrington turned sharply. Run a simulation. Keyboards clattered. The model spun. 10%. 38%. 71%. The screen froze. Fault identified. Signal conflict. No one spoke. Someone exhaled shakily. She's right. But celebration didn't come. A new message appeared. Time required to fix. 4 hours. Dr. Harrington's face hardened. We don't have 4 hours, he said. The window closes in 40 minutes. Every eye turned to Lily. She thought for a moment. Then she said, what if we don't fix it? Confusion rippled through the room. What? That makes no sense. What if, Lily continued calmly, we don't change the system. We just lie to it. Dr. Harrington's brow furrowed. Explain. If the backup never thinks there's danger, she said, it won't lock the system. We don't need to remove the signal. Just delay it. That's risky, someone snapped. Lily nodded. So is doing nothing. The clock ticked louder now. This wasn't just about a rocket anymore. This was about trust. And the question hanging in the air was no longer who is she? It was something far more dangerous. Would they trust a 6-year-old girl with $4 billion and a nation watching? The control room had fallen into a strange kind of silence. Not the calm silence of confidence, but the tense silence that appears when every option is dangerous, and doing nothing is the most dangerous of all. The countdown clock pulsed softly on the main screen. 39 minutes. Dr. Michael Harrington folded his arms, staring at the simulation results still frozen in front of him. $4 billion of engineering had just been outperformed by a 6-year-old girl who slept in a drainage tunnel. Say it again, he said carefully. Slowly. Lily stood straight, though her feet barely touched the floor. We don't change the system, she said. We change what it thinks it's seeing. A senior avionics engineer shook his head. That's deception. The safety system exists for a reason. Yes, Lily replied. Because it's afraid. Several heads turned. Machines are built to avoid fear, she continued. But when they don't understand what's happening, they panic. Just like people. Dr. Harrington studied her face. No arrogance. No desperation. Just certainty. How long would this delay take? He asked. 10 minutes, Lily said. If I can access the routing logic. A murmur ran through the room. 10 minutes? That's impossible. She can't even read half the interface. One engineer muttered, "This is insane." The clock ticked. Dr. Harrington exhaled slowly. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lily." "How old are you, Lily?" 6. The room stiffened. Dr. Harrington closed his eyes for a moment. Then he opened them. "Give her access," he said. No one argued. Not because they believed completely, but because hope had run out. They seated Lily at an auxiliary terminal. The keyboard was unfamiliar, but the logic wasn't. She didn't rush. She didn't touch the mouse at first. She simply watched the screen. "Sir," she said softly, "I need the signal routing manual." An engineer hesitated. "It's technical. I won't read it," Lily replied. "I'll recognize it." The file opened. Thousands of lines. Conditional triggers. Safeguards stacked on safeguards. Lily leaned closer. "There," she said. A systems analyst blinked. "What?" "That condition," Lily pointed. "It assumes danger comes from outside the system. That's standard. But this danger is internal," Lily said. "The system is hurting itself." 31 minutes. Dr. Harrington leaned forward. "What do you want to change?" "Nothing permanent," Lily said. "Just time." She explained slowly, choosing words carefully. If the backup system receives the warning signal 0.03 seconds later, it will believe the primary controller is still stable. It won't lock the system. A senior scientist whispered, "That's lying to the system." Lily nodded. Every machine needs a little kindness sometimes, or it freezes. The clock felt louder now. 27 minutes. Dr. Harrington stared at the code. "If this fails," an engineer said, "the vehicle could shut down on the pad." Lily didn't turn around. "It won't," she said. "Fire only destroys when it has no path forward." No one knew how to respond to that. "Proceed," Dr. Harrington said finally. "Record everything." The changes began. Line by line. Each keystroke felt like a heartbeat. If this failed, there would be no second chance. 21 minutes. Rebooting subsystem. Screens flickered. 1 second. 2. Then text appeared. Safety mode. Standby. Collective breath released. Another line followed. Control restored. Someone grabbed the edge of a console. Another wiped their eyes. But relief didn't last. A sharp tone cut through the room. Weather display shifted from green to yellow, then red. The meteorology officer stood up slowly. "Upper atmosphere wind shear is increasing." "Fast." "How fast?" Dr. Harrington asked. 65 kilometers per hour and rising." Silence. "That exceeded design limits." Dr. Harrington rubbed his face. "Why today?" he muttered. Lily looked up at the weather screen. "If we delay," she said, "the control problem may return." "But the wind," someone started. "You can't stop wind," Lily interrupted. "You use it." Dr. Harrington turned to her. "What do you mean?" Lily walked toward the large observation window. Far in the distance, the rocket stood tall, swaying slightly as gusts pushed against its structure. "Have you ever stood on a bridge during a storm?" she asked. No one answered. "If the water hits straight, the bridge breaks," Lily continued. "But if the water flows under it, the bridge survives." She pointed back to the screen. "The rocket is fighting the wind. That's why it's unstable." A senior engineer frowned. "That's not in any flight manual." Lily turned. "I never read manuals," she said. "I flew kites." The room stilled. "If we adjust the angle of attack by 2 degrees during the first 20 seconds, Lily explained, "and allow thrust vectoring to follow the wind instead of resisting it, the wind will lift the rocket, not push it." "That's dangerous," someone said. It could cause roll instability. And if we do nothing, Lily replied, the wind will decide for us. 14 minutes. Dr. Harrington closed his eyes. This wasn't just engineering anymore. This was belief. How much change? He asked. 2 degrees, Lily said. 15 seconds. A long pause. Then Dr. Harrington reached for the microphone. Flight control, he said steadily. Update launch profile. Adjust angle of attack by 2 degrees. Modify thrust vectoring for wind compliance. Commands echoed through the room. Graphs shifted. Simulations recalculated. 8 minutes. Lily stood silently now, hands clenched inside her sleeves as if holding an invisible kite string. Outside, clouds collided violently. The ocean churned. The rocket trembled. 3 minutes. Dr. Harrington's voice no longer shook. All stations, prepare for launch. Lily closed her eyes. Not in fear, in trust. Because sometimes the smallest hands understand balance better than the strongest machines ever built. The final countdown had begun. Outside, the launch pad was no longer quiet. It was alive. Steam poured from vents at the base of the rocket, rolling across the concrete like low clouds. The wind no longer whispered. It shoved, slammed, tested every bolt and joint of the towering machine. Inside the control room, no one spoke unless they had to. 90 seconds. The rocket swayed slightly on the screen. To the untrained eye, it looked unstable. To the engineers, it looked like a living thing adjusting its stance. Dr. Michael Harrington stood perfectly still, hands clasped behind his back. Years of training told him to look at data. Years of experience told him to listen to instinct. And instinct was screaming. The weather officer leaned forward. Wind shear holding at upper limits. No further increase. That was the best news they were going to get. 45 seconds. Fuel pressurization complete. Guidance stable. Control systems green. Lily stood near the back of the room, almost invisible again. No one was watching her now. Everyone was watching the rocket. Her heart beat fast, but her face remained calm. She wasn't thinking about success. She was thinking about failure, about what would happen if the rocket twisted instead of rising, if the wind won, if fire met confusion. 20 seconds. Angle of attack adjustment confirmed. Flight control reported. Thrust vectoring set to adaptive mode. A senior engineer whispered, "If this goes wrong," Dr. Harrington cut him off gently. "It won't help to imagine that." 10 seconds. The launch director's voice echoed through the room, steady and formal. 9-8. Lily clenched her fists. 7-6. A powerful gust struck the rocket sideways. The structure leaned just slightly. Someone gasped. 5-4. The rocket didn't resist. It leaned back, adjusted. Lily opened her eyes. 3-2. The ground began to shake. 1. Ignition. Fire exploded beneath the rocket in a controlled fury. The sound didn't hit immediately. It arrived like a wall, slamming into the control room through thick glass and reinforced steel. The rocket rose. At first, it fought. For 5 long seconds, it wavered against the wind, flames twisting, engines roaring as if arguing with the sky. Then something changed. The rocket didn't push back anymore. It flowed. The wind slipped under its fins instead of against them. The altered angle allowed the air to lift, not resist. The thrust vectoring adjusted in microseconds, following the path Lily had predicted. "It's stabilizing," someone said, almost afraid to believe it. Velocity nominal. Pitch holding. Roll corrected. Green lights appeared one by one across the board. Max Q approaching. This was the most dangerous phase, the point of maximum aerodynamic stress. Lily held her breath. The rocket passed through it. Safely. A wave of disbelief washed through the room. No cheers. No shouting. Just stunned silence. Stage 1 separation in 3-2-1. The screen showed a clean detachment. Stage 1 separation successful. Someone sat down heavily. Another pressed both hands to their face. Dr. Harrington didn't move. His eyes were fixed on the telemetry. Only when the data stabilized did he turn slowly toward Lily. "You didn't fight the wind," he said quietly. "You listened to it." Lily nodded. "It was already telling us what to do." The rocket climbed higher, disappearing from cameras one by one as it pierced the upper atmosphere. But the mission wasn't over. Not yet. T+6 minutes. Second stage engines burned clean and steady. The numbers looked good, but not perfect. A junior propulsion analyst frowned at his screen. "Sir," he said carefully, "fuel consumption is slightly higher than projected." Dr. Harrington stiffened. "How much?" 0.6%. That was small. And terrifying. Small errors at this stage didn't stay small. Lily spoke before anyone else could. "That's not a mistake." All eyes turned to her. "The wind helped lift the rocket," she explained. "The engines worked harder early. Now the system is rebalancing." "So we adjust?" someone asked. Lily shook her head. "If you try to fix it now, you'll create a new imbalance." That went against everything the engineers had been taught. Never ignore anomalies. Never assume. Dr. Harrington stared at the fuel curves. "Hold current parameters," he said finally. The room tensed again. T+9 minutes. Preparing for orbital insertion. This was the most delicate maneuver of all. Too little thrust and the rocket would fall back to Earth. Too much and it would drift endlessly into space. Sweat ran down more than one face. Lily stood perfectly still. She wasn't praying. She was listening to patterns, to motion, to balance. The engine burn began. Seconds stretched. Then, trajectory locked. Velocity matched. A circular path appeared on the screen. Payload successfully inserted into orbit. For a moment, no one moved. Then a chair scraped backward. Then another. Applause broke out. Not loud, not wild, but deep and heavy with relief. Dr. Harrington approached Lily. He didn't speak right away. He simply placed his hands together and bowed his head slightly. "You didn't just save a mission," he said. "You showed us how narrow our thinking had become." Lily looked down. "I just didn't want something big to break," she said. "That's all." But the hardest decision still hadn't been made. Because the rocket was safe. The world was watching. And the question now was no longer about engineering. It was about what to do with the girl who made the impossible possible. The rocket was gone from sight, but its presence still filled the control room. Telemetry streamed steadily now, calm and orderly, like a heart that had finally found its rhythm. Green indicators lined the screens, each one silently confirming that the impossible had already happened. But inside the room, no one felt light. They felt exposed. Dr. Michael Harrington stood near the center console, listening to overlapping reports, orbital stability confirmed, payload systems responding, communications nominal. Each update should have brought celebration. Instead, it brought reflection. A senior scientist cleared his throat. "If that child hadn't been here," he said slowly, "we'd be reviewing debris patterns right now." No one disagreed. Lily stood near the wall, hands clasped behind her back. She wasn't trying to disappear, but she wasn't trying to be seen either. Her eyes stayed on the screen, as if she needed proof that the rocket was truly safe. No one had told her to leave. No one had told her to stay. She existed in a quiet in-between. A legal advisor leaned toward Dr. Harrington and spoke in a low voice. "She has no records, no school enrollment, no identification. On paper, she doesn't exist." The words landed heavily. "So what?" Dr. Harrington replied. "So," the advisor continued, "we can't acknowledge her involvement publicly without creating complications." Another official joined in. "Rules are rules. We can't just bring anyone inside a secure launch facility." Dr. Harrington turned sharply. "Anyone?" he repeated. "She saved this mission." The room shifted uneasily. Lily finally spoke. "You don't have to keep me," she said softly. Heads turned. She took a small step forward. "I didn't help so I could stay," she continued. "I helped because something was wrong." Dr. Harrington looked at her. "Where do you live, Lily?" She hesitated. In a tunnel, she said. Near the water. The room went still. And your parents? He asked gently. My mom died, Lily replied. My dad? I don't know. Maybe he's working somewhere. Or maybe not. Her voice wavered only slightly, just enough to remind everyone that beneath the logic and clarity was still a 6-year-old child. Dr. Harrington took a slow breath. If we gave you a chance, he said, to learn properly, to go to school, to have training, would you want that? Lily thought for a long moment. I'm not scared of books, she said. I'm scared of fences. No one in the room missed the meaning. She had spent her life outside walls. Watching, learning, understanding, never allowed in. A decision began forming not on paper, but in conscience. After a long discussion, voices rose and fell. Concerns were raised and answered. Procedures were debated. Risks were outlined. Then Dr. Harrington spoke. We'll start with what matters, he said firmly. She's a child. She deserves safety, education, and recognition. Not because she's brilliant, but because she's human. No one argued. Temporary identification was arranged. Social services were contacted, but carefully, respectfully. Housing was organized. Medical care approved. And one promise was made quietly, without cameras or press releases. The doors she opened today would never be closed to her again. Outside the control room, noise was building. Reporters, cameras, questions flying faster than answers. Who saved the mission? Was there a last-minute fix? Was the launch ever in danger? Dr. Harrington stepped out alone. He gave them a name. He showed them a face. But he didn't tell the whole story. Some stories, he knew, weren't meant for headlines. They were meant for futures. Back inside, Lily watched the live feed of the rocket circling Earth. For the first time in her life, she wasn't thinking about what she would find tomorrow in the scrap piles. She was thinking about what she might build someday. By the time the sun dipped low over the Atlantic, the launch complex had returned to something close to normal. Screens dimmed, consoles powered down. Engineers removed headsets and stretched tired shoulders. The storm clouds that had bullied the coastline all morning began to thin, leaving streaks of orange and gold across the sky. Up above, far beyond the weather and the noise, the rocket continued its silent journey. Steady, precise, exactly where it was meant to be. Lily stood near the observation window, watching the last live feed fade into orbital data and numbers. She didn't fully understand what orbit meant yet, but she understood one thing clearly. The rocket wasn't falling. That was enough. Dr. Michael Harrington approached her quietly. He no longer looked like a man on the edge of disaster. He looked tired, reflective, older somehow. You know, he said, resting his hands on the window rail, I've spent my entire life preparing for problems like today. Lily glanced up at him. And still, he continued, the solution came from somewhere none of us were looking. Lily thought about that. Sometimes, she said, you only see what you expect to see. Dr. Harrington smiled faintly. That may be the most important lesson of the mission. Later that evening, Lily was escorted out of the control room, not as a trespasser this time, but as a guest. Security didn't rush her. No one questioned why she was there. A simple badge hung from her neck, temporary and plain, but real. Outside, the flood barrier still stood tall. The same fence, the same dividing line. But it didn't feel the same anymore. A vehicle waited near the exit. Clean, quiet, nothing like the noisy trucks Lily was used to. A social worker knelt in front of her, speaking gently, explaining things slowly. Place to stay. Doctors. School. School. The word felt strange in Lily's mouth. As the car pulled away, she looked back once more at the towering structures of the launch complex. For years, she had watched them from the outside, pressed against concrete, dreaming without knowing what she was dreaming of. Now she had been inside, not as a spectator, as a reason. Weeks passed. News outlets replayed the successful launch again and again, calling it a triumph of engineering, teamwork, and resilience. Analysts praised the mission director's calm leadership. Engineers were interviewed. Diagrams were shown. But the deeper story traveled more quietly. Within the agency, conversations changed. Engineers started asking different questions. Not just what does the data say, but what are we missing? Junior staff were encouraged to speak more freely. Unconventional ideas were tested instead of dismissed. A small internal program was launched, focused on identifying unconventional problem-solving talent, people who didn't always come through traditional paths. It wasn't named after Lily, but she was the reason it existed. For Lily herself, life changed in ways that felt unreal. A real bed, clean clothes that fit, books, so many books, that smelled like paper instead of oil and rust. At first, teachers didn't know what to do with her. She was behind in some things, far ahead in others. She struggled with sitting still, with rules that felt unnecessary, with questions that had no clear answers. But when things broke, really broke, she was always the first to understand why. She didn't just learn formulas. She learned patterns. Months later, Dr. Harrington visited her school. He stood quietly in the back of a classroom as Lily worked on a small project with wires, a battery, and a tiny motor. Her hands moved with the same calm confidence he had seen on launch day. When she noticed him, she smiled. "They gave me a fence," she said, pointing to the schoolyard outside. "But this one has a gate." Dr. Harrington felt something tighten in his chest. "That's how it should be," he replied. Years would pass. Lily's name wouldn't appear in history books right away. She wouldn't become a headline overnight. Her journey wouldn't be simple or smooth. But one thing was already certain. The world had underestimated her once. It would not get that chance again. Because brilliance doesn't come from privilege alone. It comes from curiosity, from patience, from listening when others rush. And sometimes, it comes from a 6-year-old girl who lived beyond a fence and taught a billion-dollar system how to breathe. If the story moved you, please like the video and share it with someone who believes talent can come from anywhere. Subscribe to the channel for more powerful, emotional stories that feel real because they could be. And in the comments, tell us, where are you watching from? Your city, your town, your corner of the world. Because stories travel farther when we know who they reach. Thank you for listening.